The gunshot that shattered the morning stillness sent a flock of startled birds into the sky as Tessa Pendleton ducked behind an overturned wagon, her heart hammering against her ribs. 3 days on the run from her late husband's debtors had left her exhausted, hungry, and now trapped in a dried-up creek bed with nowhere to hide. "I know you're there, woman," a gruff voice called. "Might as well come out and face what's coming to you." Tessa clutched her small satchel tighter, the last remaining possessions from her former life weighing down her trembling hands. At 26, she hadn't expected to be a widow, much less one being hunted across the Montana territory by men who believed she had access to money her gambling husband had never possessed. "I'm counting to 3, the man shouted. Taking a deep breath, Tessa prepared to run again, though her worn boots and aching legs protested the very thought. Just as she tensed to flee, another shot rang out, but this one hadn't come from her pursuer. "That's far enough." A deep, commanding voice echoed across the ravine. "The lady ain't your concern. Best be on your way." Tessa peered cautiously around the wagon's splintered edge. Atop a chestnut stallion sat a broad-shouldered man, rifle raised and steady in his weathered hands. His face was partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, but she could see the determined set of his jaw and the unwavering aim of his weapon. The pursuer, a wiry man with a week's worth of stubble, spat on the ground. "This ain't your business, mister." "That woman's husband don't much care what her husband owed," the mounted man interrupted. "You're on Tucker land now, and I don't take kindly to men threatening women on my property. You've got 10 seconds to turn around." Something in his voice, a quiet certainty, made the debt collector hesitate. He looked from the rifle to Tessa and back again, before slowly backing his horse away. "This ain't over," he called to Tessa, but he was already retreating. The rider waited until the man disappeared over the ridge before lowering his rifle and turning his attention to Tessa. As he approached, she could see him clearly for the first time, tall and strong, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of a summer sky. He wasn't young, perhaps mid-30s, with creases at the corners of those eyes that spoke of both laughter and hardship. "You hurt, madam?" he asked, dismounting with an easy grace that belied his size. "No," Tessa managed, her voice cracking from thirst. "Just tired." "Thank you for your intervention, Mr. Tucker, Beau Tucker." He extended a hand to help her up. "And you are Tessa Pendleton." She took his hand, surprised by the gentleness of his grip despite the calluses that told of years of hard work. "My husband, Richard, her voice caught. "He died 3 months ago. Left behind more debts than assets, I'm afraid." Beau Tucker studied her face, noting the dark circles under her eyes and the way her dress hung loosely on her frame. "When's the last time you ate, Mrs. Pendleton?" Tessa managed a weak smile. "I'm not entirely sure." "Yesterday morning, perhaps," he nodded once decision made. "I've got a ranch about 2 miles east of here. Nothing fancy, but there's food and shelter." He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. "I lost my wife 4 years back. Been raising my daughter alone since. We could use some help around the place cooking mainly. Place for you to stay until those men lose interest." Tessa hesitated, wary of accepting charity from a stranger, no matter how kind he seemed. "I wouldn't want to impose, it ain't charity," he said firmly, as if reading her thoughts. "Ranch needs a cook, and from the looks of things, you need somewhere safe. Simple business arrangement." Perhaps it was exhaustion or hunger or the simple human kindness this stranger had shown her, but Tessa found herself nodding. "I'm a decent cook, Mr. Tucker." "Decent's better than what we've got now," he said, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. "Which is me burning everything I touch." He helped her onto his horse, mounting behind her with practiced ease. "Hope you like children, Mrs. Pendleton." My Lucy's 6 years old and full of more questions than I've got answers for. As they rode east, the Montana landscape stretching endlessly before them, Tessa felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope, fragile as a spring seedling but stubbornly taking root all the same. The Tucker Ranch came into view as they crested a gentle hill, a sturdy 2-story house with a wide porch, a large barn, and several outbuildings spread across the property. It wasn't grand by any means, but it was well maintained, the mark of a man who took pride in his work. "Pa, Pa!" A small voice called out as they approached. A little girl with blonde braids came racing from the house, her dress flapping around her knees as she ran. Beau dismounted first, then gently helped Tessa down before catching his daughter in a tight embrace. "Hey there, Wildcat." "Been good for Mrs. Harper," the elderly woman who had followed the child onto the porch nodded. "Good as gold, Mr. Tucker, though she's been watching that ridge for you since sunrise." Lucy Tucker stared up at Tessa with wide, curious eyes the same shade as her father's. "Who are you?" she asked bluntly. "Lucy," Beau admonished gently, "mind your manners." "It's quite all right," Tessa assured him before kneeling to the child's level. "I'm Mrs. Pendleton. Your father has kindly offered me a position as your cook." Lucy's face brightened instantly. "Does that mean no more burned biscuits for breakfast?" Beau cleared his throat, looking slightly embarrassed. "Like I said, I ain't much in the kitchen." "That's putting it kindly, Beau Tucker," Mrs. Harper said with a fond smile. "Man can run 1,000 acres but can't boil water without creating a disaster." She turned kind eyes to Tessa. "I've been helping out when I can, but these old bones don't make the trip from town as easily as they used to." After Mrs. Harper departed for town, Beau showed Tessa to a small but comfortable bedroom at the back of the house. "It ain't much," he said, setting down her satchel, "but it's yours for as long as you need it." "It's perfect," Tessa replied honestly, taking in the clean linens and the small vase of wildflowers on the dresser, clearly Lucy's addition. "Thank you, Mr. Tucker." "Beau," he corrected. "If you're going to be living here, might as well use my given name. Then you must call me Tessa." He nodded, a hint of color touching his tan cheeks. "I'll leave you to get settled. Supper's usually at 6, but—" He stopped, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Guess that's your department now." Left alone, Tessa sank onto the bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. She had gone from hunted to housed in the span of hours, all because of the kindness of this quiet rancher and his bright-eyed daughter. As she washed away the dust of travel in the basin provided, she silently promised to earn her keep and to protect this newfound sanctuary with everything she had. The kitchen proved to be well stocked but poorly organized, evidence of a man doing his best without much knowledge of culinary matters. Tessa spent the afternoon setting things to rights, planning a simple but hearty supper of beef stew and fresh bread that had Lucy dancing with excitement. "Real bread," the little girl exclaimed, watching Tessa knead the dough with practiced hands. "Pa always buys it from town because his turns out like rocks." "They're not rocks," Beau protested from the doorway where he'd been watching them. "Just very dense biscuits." "Mrs. Harper said they could sink a riverboat," Lucy informed Tessa solemnly. Beau's laugh was unexpected and warm, transforming his serious face. "Can't argue with that assessment." He hesitated, then added, "Need any help in here? Perhaps Lucy could set the table." Tessa suggested, noticing how the little girl brightened at being given a task. That first meal together was initially awkward, with conversation starting and stopping like a poorly tuned piano. But as the simple food was consumed with appreciation, the tension eased. Lucy, uninhibited by adult reservations, peppered Tessa with questions about everything from her favorite color to whether she knew any good stories. "Lucy, let Mrs. Pendleton eat," Beau finally intervened. "It's all right," Tessa assured him. "And yes, Lucy, I do know quite a few stories. Perhaps one before bed if your father approves." The bedtime story became a ritual that very night, with Lucy insisting Tessa, not her father, tuck her in. As Tessa wove a tale about a brave princess who rescued herself from a tower, she became aware of Beau standing in the doorway, listening just as intently as his daughter. "That was much better than Pa's stories," Lucy declared when Tessa finished. "He always tells the same one about a talking horse." "That talking horse has served me well for 6 years," Beau defended himself, but his eyes crinkled with amusement. As days turned into weeks, Tessa found herself settling into life at the Tucker ranch with surprising ease. The kitchen became her domain. Meals became moments of connection, and the constant fear that had been her companion since Richard's death began to recede. Beau Tucker remained something of a mystery, kind but reserved, hard-working but careful to maintain a certain distance. He was unfailingly polite, appreciative of her contributions and clearly devoted to his daughter, but Tessa sensed walls around him as solid as the mountains framing the horizon. Spring was giving way to summer when Lucy came running into the kitchen one afternoon, her face flushed with excitement. "Miss Tessa, Pa says I can have my own garden patch. Will you help me plant it, please?" Tessa wiped flour-covered hands on her apron. "If your father doesn't mind, I'd be delighted." "He said to ask you," Lucy insisted, tugging at Tessa's hand. "He's already plowing a spot near the well." True to Lucy's word, Beau was turning over soil in a small square of earth when they arrived. He straightened at their approach, pushing back his hat to wipe his brow. "Lucy's been asking for her own garden since last summer," he explained. "Figured it was time." "A wonderful idea," Tessa agreed. Every child should have the chance to see something grow from their own efforts. Something flickered in Beau's eyes, surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "That's exactly what Sarah, my wife, used to say." It was the first time he had mentioned his late wife by name, and Tessa treasured this small confidence. "She sounds like a wise woman." "She was," he said simply, then turned his attention to Lucy. "Now, Wildcat, Miss Tessa and I will help you get started, but this garden's your responsibility." The three of them spent the afternoon together, planting seeds for carrots, radishes, and marigolds, Lucy chattering the entire time about her plans for the harvest. When Beau was called away to deal with a fence issue, Lucy grew quieter, working alongside Tessa in companionable silence for a while. "Miss Tessa," she finally asked, patting soil around a seedling, "are you going to stay with us forever?" The innocent question caught Tessa off guard. I'm not sure, Lucy. Your father hired me to cook, but I want you to stay," Lucy declared with a child's directness. "Pa smiles more now. And he doesn't look sad when he thinks no one's watching." Tessa felt her heart constrict. "Does he do that often? Look sad when he thinks no one sees?" Lucy nodded solemnly. "Ever since Mama went to heaven, but not so much anymore." She looked up at Tessa with those clear blue eyes. "I think it's because of you." That night, after Lucy was asleep, Tessa found herself unable to rest, Lucy's words echoing in her mind. She made her way to the front porch, where the cool night air might clear her thoughts, only to find Beau already there, smoking a pipe and gazing at the stars. "I'm sorry," she said, turning to go. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You're not," he said quickly. "Please join me." She settled into the chair beside him, conscious of his presence in a way that had become increasingly familiar and increasingly troubling. She had not come to the Tucker ranch looking for anything beyond sanctuary and honest work, yet she found herself drawn to this quiet, steadfast man in ways that both terrified and exhilarated her. "Lucy seems very excited about her garden," she offered after a comfortable silence. Beau nodded, a smile touching his lips. Hasn't stopped talking about it since you two came in for supper. Got big plans for those carrots. She's a remarkable child. She is that." He tapped his pipe against the porch railing. "Reminds me more of her mother every day." Tessa hesitated, then ventured gently, "Would you tell me about her?" "About Sarah." For a moment she thought she had overstepped, but then Beau began to speak, his voice low and measured. He told her of meeting Sarah at a harvest dance, of her love for wildflowers and music, of the 3 happy years they had together before childbed fever took her just days after Lucy's birth. "Must have been very difficult," Tessa said softly when he finished. "Raising a newborn alone." "Hardest thing I've ever done," he admitted. "Wouldn't have managed without help from folks like Mrs. Harper. But Lucy, she gave me a reason to get up every morning, even when I didn't want to face the day." The vulnerability in his voice moved her deeply. Without thinking, she reached out, laying her hand gently over his where it rested on the arm of his chair. "You've done a wonderful job with her." He stared at their hands for a long moment before slowly turning his palm upward, his fingers curling around hers. "Been a long time since I've talked about Sarah like that," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Thank you for listening." They sat that way for some time, hands joined, watching the stars wheel overhead, neither willing to break the fragile connection that had formed between them. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor, the town's sheriff, Nathan Miller, riding up to the ranch just as they were finishing breakfast. Beau met him on the porch, his stance wary. "Morning, Beau," the sheriff greeted. "Madam," he added, nodding to Tessa who stood in the doorway. "Hate to bring trouble, but thought you should know there've been reports of men asking about a woman matching your housekeeper's description in town." Tessa felt the blood drain from her face. Richard's debtors had found her trail. Beau's expression hardened. "Appreciate the warning, Nate. Any idea what they want? Claim she's got something belonging to them. Didn't like the look of them myself." The sheriff turned his kind eyes to Tessa. "Don't mean to pry into your business, madam, but if you're in some kind of trouble—" "My late husband left debts," Tessa explained, her voice steadier than she felt. "These men believe I have money hidden away, but there is none. Richard gambled everything we had and more." The sheriff nodded thoughtfully. "Might be best if you stayed close to the ranch for a while. I'll keep an eye out in town, let you know if they move on." After he departed, Beau found Tessa in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she tried to focus on making bread. Without a word, he took the flour-covered hands in his own. "You're safe here," he said firmly. "I won't let them harm you." "I've brought danger to your home," she whispered, tears threatening. "To Lucy. I should leave, no." The word was gentle but brooked no argument. "This is your home now, Tessa. We'll face this together." The conviction in his voice steadied her, but it was the word home that lodged in her heart. Home. How long had it been since she'd truly had one of those? The threat of Richard's debtors hung over the ranch like a storm cloud, but life continued its steady rhythm. Summer bloomed fully across the Montana landscape, bringing longer days filled with work and small joys. Lucy's garden flourished under her dedicated care, providing tiny carrots and radishes that she proudly contributed to family meals. Family. The word had begun to form in Tessa's mind without her permission, dangerous in its implications, but increasingly accurate in describing what the 3 of them had become. Lucy now came to her as naturally as she went to her father, seeking comfort for scraped knees or excitement over new discoveries. And Beau had slowly lowered his guard, the reserved rancher giving way to a man of surprising depth and quiet humor. Their conversations on the porch had become a nightly ritual, spanning topics from books to dreams to childhood memories. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence. Sometimes their hands found each other in the darkness. They never spoke of these moments in the light of day, as if acknowledging them might somehow break the spell. It was on one such evening, with summer stars bright overhead, that Beau finally asked the question that had lingered between them. "Was he good to you? Your husband?" Tessa considered her answer carefully. Richard was charming, exciting, not cruel but not kind either. He loved the idea of being married more than he loved me, I think. She traced the grain of the wooden armrest with her fingertip. "I was very young when we wed, just 18. He seemed so worldly, so sure of himself. And you weren't happy." "I thought I was for a time," she admitted. "But looking back, I realize I never felt safe. There was always another scheme, another debt, another town we needed to leave quickly in the night." She smiled sadly. "I've never stayed in one place as long as I've been here." Beau was quiet for a long moment. "And here? Are you happy here, Tessa?" She turned to look at him fully, moonlight silvering his features. "Happier than I've ever been," she answered honestly. The tension between them seemed to crystallize in that moment, a fragile, precious thing neither dared to shatter. Beau leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, but Tessa found herself moving toward him, drawn by a force as inevitable as gravity. Their first kiss was gentle, questioning, a conversation without words. When they parted, Beau rested his forehead against hers, his breathing unsteady. "I never expected to feel this way again," he whispered. "Nor I," she confessed. "It frightens me how much I've come to care for you, for Lucy." "Don't be afraid," he said, taking her hand and pressing it to his chest where his heart beat strongly. "Some things are worth the risk." The sound of approaching horses shattered the moment. 3 riders coming fast up the road to the ranch, the moonlight glinting off metal that could only be guns. Beau was on his feet instantly, pushing Tessa toward the door. "Get inside," he ordered, all tenderness gone from his voice. "Take Lucy to the root cellar and stay there until I come for you." "Beau, now, Tessa." He was already reaching for the rifle kept by the door. "I won't let them take you, but I need to know you and Lucy are safe." Heart pounding, Tessa rushed to Lucy's room, gathered the sleeping child in her arms, and hurried to the cellar as the sound of men's voices carried through the night air. She huddled in the darkness with Lucy clutched to her chest, the little girl mercifully remaining asleep despite being moved. Above them, she could hear the muffled exchange growing heated. Beau's deep voice, firm and unyielding. Other voices, angry and insistent. Then a sound that froze her blood, a gunshot, followed by a woman's scream that she belatedly realized had come from her own throat. Lucy stirred in her arms. "Miss Tessa, what's happening?" "SH, sweetheart, everything's fine," she lied, straining to hear any sound from above. The silence was worse than the shouting had been. After what seemed an eternity, the cellar door opened, and Sheriff Miller's face appeared in the rectangle of light. "It's all right, Mrs. Pendleton. You can come out now." "Beau?" she asked, her voice breaking on his name. "He's fine," the sheriff assured her quickly. "Took a graze to the arm, nothing serious. Those men won't be bothering you again. They're enjoying my hospitality in the town jail." The relief that flooded through her made her knees weak as she climbed the cellar steps with Lucy in her arms. The sight of Beau standing in the kitchen, left sleeve rolled up while Mrs. Harper, summoned by the sheriff, bandaged a shallow wound on his upper arm, nearly undid her completely. "Pa," Lucy cried, wriggling from Tessa's grasp to run to her father. "You're hurt." "Just a scratch, wildcat," he assured her, gathering her close with his good arm. His eyes found Tessa over Lucy's head, a wealth of emotion in their blue depths. "You two all right?" Tessa nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Later, after Lucy had been tucked back into bed with extra stories and reassurances, and Mrs. Harper had returned to town with the sheriff, Tessa found Beau on the porch again, staring out into the darkness. "You could have been killed," she said, her voice still unsteady. "Worth the risk," he replied simply, echoing his earlier words. "Not to me. Not to Lucy." Tears she had been holding back spilled over. "I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me." He stood, crossing to her in 2 long strides and pulling her into his arms. "Listen to me, Tessa Pendleton. Those men came here looking for easy prey and found a family instead. That's not your fault, it's their choice and their mistake. Family." There was that word again, but this time spoken aloud, given substance and meaning. "The sheriff says they've admitted there never was any hidden money," Beau continued. "They were just trying to intimidate you into paying your husband's debts twice over. They won't be bothering you again." She looked up at him, hope blooming cautiously. "Truly, truly." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "You're free, Tessa, free to go wherever you want, do whatever you choose." The implication was clear. She was no longer bound to the ranch by necessity, no longer needed to hide. She could leave if she wished. "And if what I choose is to stay?" she asked softly. "If what I want is right here." The smile that transformed his face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "Then I'd say that makes 2 of us." This time when they kissed, there was no hesitation, no holding back. This was a promise, a declaration, a beginning. Summer gave way to autumn, and with the changing leaves came a wedding small and intimate, with only their closest friends in attendance. Lucy served as flower girl, beaming with pride as she watched her father and the woman who had become a mother to her in all but name join their lives officially. "You may kiss your bride," the preacher announced, and Beau didn't hesitate, sweeping Tessa into an embrace that left no doubt of his feelings. As guests threw flower petals and offered congratulations, Lucy tugged at her father's sleeve. "Pa," she said earnestly, "remember when Miss Tessa first came? I told you she holds my hand just right, like Mama used to." Beau knelt to his daughter's level, his eyes suspiciously bright. "I remember, Wildcat." "I told you not to let her go," Lucy continued. "And you didn't. You kept her." Tessa joined them, kneeling beside Beau in her simple white dress. "Actually, Lucy," she said, taking the little girl's hand in hers, "I think we all kept each other." That night, as the new Mrs. Tucker stood on the porch of what was now truly her home, her husband's arms encircling her from behind, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From desperate widow to beloved wife and mother, from homeless wanderer to the heart of a family, all because a kind-hearted cowboy had offered shelter to a woman in need, and a perceptive child had recognized what the adults had been slow to see. "What are you thinking about?" Beau murmured against her hair. "How strange life is," she answered honestly. "A year ago I had nothing, now I have everything." He turned her in his arms to face him, his expression serious. "We both lost people we loved, thought that part of life was over for me. But you and Lucy taught me that hearts can heal, can even grow bigger than before." Inside the house, Lucy called for them one more story before sleep, a request they never denied. Hand in hand, they went to their daughter, the family they had built together strong enough to weather whatever storms might come. Years later, the garden Lucy had planted that first summer remained a fixture at the Tucker Ranch, though it had grown considerably, much like the family itself. 2 more children joined them, a boy with his father's steady nature, and a girl with her mother's resilient spirit. The ranch prospered, the house expanded, but some things remained constant: the nightly stories, the conversations on the porch, and the love that had transformed 3 wounded souls into a family that was, in Lucy's words, exactly as it should be.